that's cool. So we're going to have people that are going to be listening to this from like all levels of production. So I thought maybe starting off with a more basic question. What's the best way for people to send files if they're doing like a stem master? And what's something that kind of like people do commonly wrong that you wish was sort of fixed or done differently?
You know, if you're going to do stems, if you're going to do stem mastering, it's just like be confident in what, you know, the decisions that you've made. Don't overthink what you're going to send. Break it down into like, you know, kick and bass are always important on its own. Everything else can be grouped by type. So my general thing is 6 to 8 stems, kick on its own, bass on its own, and then you can maybe put clap on its own, and then you can group synths together, and you can group effects together and vocals together. Just don't overthink it. Be confident in the decisions that you make at the mix. The other thing is naming the fucking files. Just name them. Do you know what I mean? Name them properly. And also, you know, put your name on the zip file that you send to your mastering engineer. Let them know who it is. Put the artist name or put the, you know, who it is, not just a track name. And then, you know, because a lot of mastering engineers, they have their cloud server and it, you know, it uploads to it. So you just download your files in the morning. Then I've got a folder full of folders that have just got no names in them. So, yeah, just name.
So pretty basic stuff that people might forget.
Everybody forgets. Everybody. Right. I've actually, it's taken me 2 years to get you in check.
So I guess one of the reasons we love working with you and we get you to do mixing and mastering on most of our records, if not all of them, is because you have such honest feedback. You really let us know if there's something we can improve. And I guess you're probably the reason I have half the studio gear, including my monitors and headphones and all that sort of stuff. There's been like quite a lot of even I'd say artist development on your side as a mastering engineer with the people you work with. So you've shown me what kind of the most affordable and best headphones to use are. Would you like to let everyone else know?
Headphone technology has come such a long way. It's ridiculous. You can, you know, nowadays there's so many good brands and there's so many good little bits of software that you can add to your headphones to improve the sound that it's more than capable of, you know, being your main production tool, especially for the bedroom producer. Because like one of the biggest issues I see is people working in untreated rooms. So then, like, you know, they mix the bass too loud or they don't mix the bass loud enough. And, you know, that's fine if you're going to do stems. I mean, you know, most mastering engineers won't do stems. They like stereo files because they think stems is the decision of the mix engineer. But for me, it's that, you know, a lot of my clients are bedroom producers, so it just makes it easier. But headphones, you know, really help with all that and the details. So, you know, right now, the sort of the cheaper end, you've got the Audeze Mobius, which is what I'm wearing here. These are like they're Audeze gaming headset, but they're fucking amazing for production as well. They've got the same planar magnetic drivers as the big ones that you're wearing, but obviously like a redesigned smaller one. LCD ones, which is more traditional, because these have got Bluetooth and wireless microphone and all that. LCD one, which is their kind of more entry level production headphones. The Senhieser 600 and 650s are really good, but you know, using those with correction software is the go. So Sonarworks and making them flat. And then also another plugin that's really good is Kilohertz CanOpener, which what that does is creates I won't take it. It's a bit difficult to explain. I'm gonna, you know what? Let me go to their website and explain exactly, because I still don't even understand exactly what it's doing.
Yeah, cool. We'll chuck links to all of these as well in the description. Once we check this on YouTube, so I'll have a little bit of a.
But anyway, yeah, you know, there's also Hifiman. Here we go. CanOpener. What's it doing? It's doing. So it's basically when you use speakers, you get a thing called crossfeed, which you don't get in headphones. So CanOpener enables you to add crossfeed to headphones, so it brings a more realistic sound. So instead of the headphones sounding like they're left and right, it brings them across, so it sounds like you're sitting in front of the speakers. So it makes them sound more like traditional monitors. I don't know how it does it. It's a pretty fancy algorithm, but anyway, yeah, it's a good tool to be using with the headphones. Hifiman 400 eyes can be picked up really, really cheap on Amazon. They're pretty good headphone. they're originally Hifiman is a high-end Chinese hi-fi company, which is because, believe it or not, there's lots of high-end Chinese hi-fi companies now. There's high-end brands because it's got a rich population, so it's one of those high-end brands. And the 400i's were originally $1,500 headphones, and you can pick them up because they've updated their range. You can pick them up for like $400 on Amazon. Focal do some good ones. It's all down to budget. And then even if you're using cheaper headphones, Sonarworks has got profiles for a lot of these headphones. So for me, it's always like, see what Sonarworks has got, see what profiles they got, see if they've got a profile for your headphones and try them out. Makes a big difference. Flattens the curve, the EQ curves, because a lot of these headphones are all hyped for, they're hyped for the home listener. So.
And for the more intermediate producers, I know you recommended the Audeze LCD2, which is what I use every single day. And I've also got the Grace M900 headphone amp.
So headphones are like passive monitors. The better the amp driving them, the better the sound. And also things like those LCD there, they need a good amp to drive the drivers to push into.
I think this was about $3,000 all up for both.
Yeah.
But
LCD2s. So the way it goes LCD1, LCD2, LCD-X, which was originally their kind of sort of their first of their mastering sort of headphones, then LCD3 and then LCD4. The LCD4s over here are like $6,500 now. They never used to be that much.
Wow.
They sound phenomenal, but I don't know. It's like once you start going above the X's, it's real incremental, tiny. There's with any equipment, when you go from $400 speakers into like $1,500, it's a big jump. You go from $1,500 into $3,000, it's a little jump. You go from $3,000 into $4,000, tiny jump. You go to $4,000 into $10,000. Do you know what I mean? It's all incremental benefits.
Yeah.
It's like, this is why mastering engineers are always just obsessed people with sound, because they spend money for the tiniest improvement. You know what I mean? That's all it is. So a headphone amp as well. Your average sound card that most people will have won't be able to drive these high-end headphones. So you need a better headphone amp.
And for studio monitors, I guess the same could be said. And we also just got Reese asking about Sonarworks, which I know that a lot of people do use in collaboration with their studio monitors.
Yeah, what's he asking? Is that in the chat thing? I can see it. Up.
So that's
Klaus, Sonarworks. No, I don't use Sonarworks in my monitors, but for a start, the room that I work in, I work in it at Free Energy Device Studio, which is in Camperdown. So the rooms, we've got Duntech speakers in there. So I don't know if you know what Duntech is, an Aussie brand. The downstairs has got the Sovereigns, I think they are. They're like, $100,000 big tower speakers, and upstairs has got the smaller ones. In the treated room doesn't need it. But Sonarworks is for speakers. It's a Band-Aid. That's all it is.
Yeah.
You can't beat acoustic treatment. You need to measure the room, see where your peaks and troughs are, see where your room nodes are, fix those, and then Sonarworks will help you get across the line. And the other speakers I use are Genelec, and I've got 834 ones, and that's got its own software. So I can stick them in a room. I've got the two speakers with two subs, and it's got its own software with a mic, and it measures the room and corrects them as well. So it's got a fancier version of Sonarworks. Sonarworks is great for headphones. I'm not a fan of it on speakers, basically.
A lot of people go cable crazy, spending a lot of money on cables. What's your opinion on that?
Snake oil.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
Nonsense. So good, good quality mic cables for your equipment, like XLR cables and stuff. Yes, but you don't need things like all these stupidly expensive power cables you see online. It's nonsense. Headphone cables, I don't know. Like I'm when it comes to headphones, I'm obsessed with headphones, all right? Because I spend a lot of time on them because I've become a fan of that intimacy, and I spend more time on headphones than I do on my speakers because I just like that vibe. It's close up. It's very intimate. And as I've got older, as my damage from clubs and stuff, it's kind of just compensates for it all. But I've tried all sorts of my new cable that I've just put on my LCD-X is here.
Yeah, I saw that. Oh, that you posted on Facebook.
Yeah, that's silver. That's a silver cable.
Yeah.
And I swear it sounds better. I swear there's a brightness to the top end and something else. And other people tell me I'm imagining it. So, but there's some things like, I believe that headphone cables like that can make a difference. Other people I know there's Sterling Sound, which is the big famous mastering house in America. One of their engineers has different cables that he swaps out from his converters, so that digital to analog and analog to digital, he'll okay, let's try this cable to change the sound. And I think the science proves that that's pretty much nonsense.
Yeah.
So
over the last few months, you've been traveling quite a bit. You've also been in quarantine, Klaus Quarantine Hill. And so is there any portable analog gear that you've taken with you, or do you mainly just use stuff in the box?
No, I traveled with analog compressor, analog EQ in a rack. And if you'd seen me in quarantine, I was eating their power with my fucking tube compressors and EQs running, because I basically carried on working. I had my headphones and I had my Subpac, and I'm 100% confident in making decisions on that. I've mixed and mastered records like that for the last 3 or 4 years, and I just carried on as normal, basically. Normally I'd have my speakers and I'm able to flip between the two. With that, I was just like, okay, I carried on. But my hotel room was like, you walked in and it was baking hot, because I had the fucking tube EQs running, everything plugged in. So no, I carried everything with me, and I took all that with me to the UK, because I was staying for a while. But some of the portable units, to be honest, I could have done without taking all the equipment as well, and just used. I'm a big fan, actually. What I picked up on was RME. It's a German company, makes really, really good gear. It's kind of like, I mean, some of it is mastering grade, or it's kind of. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with it, but you don't see it in many big mastering houses. But they're phenomenal drivers, rock solid. The conversion is really good, and they sound good. And they make these portable units. And I got a little portable unit from them, which I bought when I was in Europe, and it sounds great. And it's like this. It's like it's literally, you can put it in a little padded box and put it in your suitcase and take it with you. So I'm a big fan of that, and I'll be recommending that for people. You just get, if you're just on the road, you can just get a DAC, digital to analog converter, which is it's bringing the sound out. So that's basically a headphone amp. You can take that, and it's enough to feed the headphones and feed a Subpac if you want to do that. And the sound quality on it is amazing, and it comes with a little neat mult control.
Nice. And people that are working more in the box, that I guess producers at home that just want to get some nicer sounds, is there any soft stuff that you'd recommend that?
Soft serve? Are you calling me fat? Are you saying that? No, soft serve? Is there any soft serve I recommend? Saying that I'm fat? Is that what you're saying?
Is there any of the plugins that you recommend that sort of emulate what the hardware is doing?
Yes. But you really want me to do that? Because do people really want me to recommend that?
I've just spent $2,000 on audio Acoustica plugins, so just tell me that I did the right thing.
Yeah, you did. And that's the problem, is because I'm the worst fucking person to ask about that shit. Because
it cost me a lot of money.
Yeah. And listen, straight up, guys, I'm a firm believer, right? That you can do everything you need to do with your DAW suite plugins, right? I mean, Ableton suite plugins, I bet most of you on Ableton sound great. EQ8, the high pass and the low pass filter has been redone, which is by you've got the glue compressor inside Ableton now. That's an Australian guy. I can't remember his name, because the original was a separate plugin, third party plugin that they've ported. And the guy that made the glue, has redone the high pass and the low pass filters, because they used to sound shit, and they've improved massively. But the actual bell curves and stuff on the EQ8 are shit. They sound awful. But the rest of it, all that racks and everything else you can do, sounds amazing. You don't need any third party plugins. You can do everything you want with your suite plugins. But if you do want to buy stuff, which I'm obsessed with buying plugins like that, Acoustica Audio is a big one. Ugly GUIs can be, the way they work is a little bit not glitchy, but it's not smooth like your standard kind of plugins, because the way they do the design. So they're all based off of they've got a special name for it, but it's basically convolution. I know most of you know what convolution is. It's like, so what they do is if it's convolutions are how they make reverb. So they'll go in and run a tone for a room, or fire a starter pistol and record the room, and they'll get this, the way that the sound waves react in the room, and then they can put that into a plugin so they can emulate those rooms. Acoustica do the same thing with hardware equipment. They run tones through all the equipment to get what it sounds like. So they record every single turn of an EQ boost, every single cut, every single Q turn, gain structure, preamp, colors, and all that kind of stuff. But so they're very CPU intensive. They're very large files. They eat up your memory as well, because it's all little audio files you're downloading. But they sound amazing.
Wow, that's
so
amazing.
I would look at them if you're going to pick one for production. I'd like maybe try Pink, which is API. So you get like a compressor, EQ, you get like a channel strip, which is compressor, EQ, and high pass filters, low pass filters all combined, and then you get those as separate units. So an EQ, a compressor, and then you get what they call the preamp, which is the color of the unit that you can switch on and off. So the nice thing with those is you run through and you get all the EQ curves and compression curves of the units, but you can engage the color in and out of the actual unit. So they're the closest thing to analog, I think. Although Plugin Alliance now, the way they're doing their stuff with their THC and all that, they're all catching up. And even IQ Multimedia, everyone's realized that like these crazy Italians, Acoustica, have been doing this stuff for ages, and they've got, they're crap at marketing, useless with their promo, but they just build incredible plugins. I just wish they would make these things more attractive. Horrible colors. It's just stuff you can't read, and it just just things they just dump and make them so much simpler, but they sound good. And then the Plugin Alliance stuff, all the new stuff, that new Amec EQ they've done is really nice. If I was going to suggest you could go and buy some Plugin acoustical audio stuff, but I also recommend just getting the Plugin Alliance subscription as well.
Great. So that's a subscription based.
Yeah, that's, it's 200 something US for the year. I don't know. It's like a monthly fee. And remember, guys, this is what people forget. They always sit there and go, oh, I know it's difficult times with COVID or anything else, but all that software and everything else is all tax deductible. I keep trying to say to people, they're like, oh, but just put in your fucking tax, just write it off. Do you know what I mean? It's an expense. And if you get into that point that you want to do, people forget. So those subscriptions are good. The Slate one's all right, but the Plugin Alliance one is bigger. It's like 300 odd plugins, and they're bringing out more plugins all the time. And their new emulations are really good. The SPL stuff they're doing is really nice. The EQ, they're just about to do KnifAudio. So they've got a new synth. So Knif is if you do a search for it after, it's KNIF, KnifAudio. It's probably the most sexiest, immaculate, ridiculous hardware you can ever buy. It's like you open up the insides and it's like, it's when you buy hardware, there's always these discrepancies in the left and right channels. They're never quite balanced. It's all right because it's analog, and his stuff is the closest thing to perfection when it comes to hardware. It's incredible. He's got EQs and compressors. He's got a very new compressor. He's got two EQs, one called a Soma, which is tube, and he's got another one called the Esca, which is like a clean one. And Plugin Alliance have just got the Soma EQ coming up, and and they've got he also makes a synthesizer, and they just copied that, which is, it's supposed to be phenomenal. So that's a subscription. It's like $15 a month or something. I'll jump on that.
We'll grab these links and throw them into the description as well.
Yeah.
Before we open up to anyone that wants to ask any questions, I just thought maybe you could let us know some of the most popular or famous artists you've ever had the privilege of mixing and mastering, or
there's loads of them. No, it's probably one of the remixes. Do you know what I mean? It's like, there's a Maroon 5, Kelly Clarkson, something, one of those ones, because it's a remix that someone's done of those bigger artists. And in dance music, I don't know. I did something for Calvin Harris recently.
Oh wow! One
of his. I think it was with
Love Regenerator.
No, I don't know. It's not even out. I don't know if they're even going to use what I did. But that was I mastered that, and that's he's got like some side projects, and a friend of mine does all the mixing, so I just did some mastering for them while I was in the UK on that. I think it was a track with what's that, Saladra or whatever they call it. Yep. There's a track with that. I don't know if it's coming out. That's so it's probably right now. That's probably one of the biggest ones. There's always these bits and pieces, Panel, I mean, they're huge. But then if you're looking for pop stuff, look, there's lots of it, but they're always, it's the remixes.
Yeah.
I think I would say that's probably Kelly Clarkson. She's big, isn't she?
Yeah. I'd take her out on a date, although it's been about 6 months since a date, so I'd take about anyone out on a date.
I've heard that about you, to be honest. Yeah.
So if anyone wants to ask any questions, you can just take yourself off mute and fire away with a question.
Is that it? Is that all the questions you got? It's only 8:27. I've scheduled an hour for you.
Well, I thought people might have some questions.
Okay.
Anyone out there got any questions? I could keep going. You want to let us know exactly what's on your master chain?
That's not COVID, by the way, guys. You're fine. Are you asking, is no one going to ask a fucking question? Are you all going to say, I can see you all. You're all on the top of my screen. Yeah, and you've all got your mics muted. At least answer a fucking question, will you? No? All right. Okay. Do you want to know what's on my master chain?
Yeah.
Do you want to know in the box or do you want to know hardware?
I bet. Tell us both.
Okay. So hardware is always changing because I'm never satisfied. So the hardware chain at the moment is Headphone Amps Tube EQ, but that's just about to go as well because I'm going to swap that out. But I've got it in at the moment. Manly Massive, which is a new addition because I was using one in England and I've fallen in love with it again because it's one of those ones you see in every studio and like it's kind of like I always thought to myself, sounds shit on dance music because it's like woolly, it's tube, it's like, you know, the same as the Verimue compressor. It's kind of, but I got schooled basically massively in the UK by the engineer in the studio I was working in, proper legend, and he just was doing some shit with it and I'm like, yeah, I've got a thing. So I'm using that again. Dangerous compressor, which is a really clean compressor, and then my tube compressor is a Headphone Amps. So you've got the Verimue, which is a style of compressor, which is made famous by Manly. Their tube one is it's goopy as the only way to, you know, it's slow, so it's not great for dance music. It doesn't react to thing. Whereas the Headphone Amps, the Handcrafted Labs, which is basically Russian. These guys were ex-Russian military working, you know, in the Cold War, radio technicians and stuff, and they've got all these crazy designs, and they make these wicked. They're built like tanks. It's huge. So that's my Verimue at the moment. EQs. So I've got the Manly Massive, the Better Maker, which I'd never get rid of. So that's a Better Maker parametric. It's two bands. It's two sections of parametric on the left-hand side, and a high and low band pull tech on the right-hand side. So it's two EQs in one, fully digital controlled. So even though it's got knobs on the front, I can control it by a plug-in inside the computer. So it saves all my settings. So it's recall. So I can open everything up, and that's basically where everything needs to go. There's like this day and age, there's no luxury for constantly recalling stuff anymore. Like, you know, the less hardware I've got, the quicker I can recall stuff and get through it all. You know, at some point I'll go in the box, 100% plugins, and then just come out to capture for some color, you know. So you have digital to analog converter. So that brings the sound out to your speakers and then feeds your chain. And then you have the AD, which is the analog to digital, which takes the signal back in. The DAC is always clean. You want that because you want to know what's going on. The AD at the other end, you can have clean, you can have colored, and you can add vibe. So eventually I have several of them, and I can turn around and go, okay, so let's say, you know, I've got a Need No Sleep track, right? Because it's just, yeah, look, smiling now. I fucking see you. Right, so yeah, look. So it just sounds, I don't know, it's a bit harsh in the top end, but I don't want to take any of that off. I can choose an AD, which is like a Burl, which is transformer based, colored, and I can drive into it and it will smooth out that top end without adding any EQ or anything else like that. And it adds the character of that. Or if I need to go super fucking loud, I've got another one that you can clip, which is same as the clipping plugin. So I can drive into it, shave off the transients, get the loud signal, and that signal I've captured is like, you know, 1 or 2 dB louder on the internal, which enables me to go louder with the limiter. So yeah.
Just quickly, has a producer ever sent you a track that didn't have harsh top end? Especially on the hats?
I was one this week that was actually fucking immaculate. Who was it? It was someone really good. I'm not saying that none of you aren't. I'm just saying it was someone really big and someone good, and I can't remember who it was. Look, here's the thing with hats. Anyway, I'll do hats and then I'll go back to gear.
Yeah.
The thing is with hats, they can be loud. You can have them loud. You just need to rein in the harsh bit, and the harsh bit is 5 to 8K, maybe 9K. And the tricks to do that is that is to use some multi-band compression, multi-bands, really fast attack. So like 10 attack, 5 attack, or 10 attack, 5 release, quick release, quick attack, or short attack, quicker release, so that it's moving really quickly. And then so when the hits hit, the multi-band's just pulling them down. So you keep the volume, but you're taming out the harshness. Or put a de-esser on or something like that. And then you can keep that level. But I am fucking telling you, loud hats hurt. They just hurt. And it's not about good sound systems. You've got to remember is that 70% of the time your music is being played on shit sound systems. And it's just going to take people's heads off. So that's why I'm preach about hats. But some engineers will just go, fuck it, I'll dial it out. But I'll go back to people and say, I'll just turn them down or try to smooth them. I never cut. I always just, trying to eat into them with dynamic control. But you can have the volume, just smooth them out. Yeah, so then the chain, anyway, back to my hardware chain. There's loads of it, dude. Does audio DBC, which is a dianode compressor. It's really colored. Don't use it for any compression. Just run into it and it adds like a Neve Neve console sound. It's very colored. That's nice for like stuff that's been, if it's stuff's a bit too digital, no character. There's some other limiters, old stuff, some other EQs. Yeah.
Cool.
Loads of it. I'm obsessed with it.
All right, awesome. And we'll put a little link to the Heavyweight producer group on Facebook, which you can tell us a little bit about as well. But I know there's some pretty big players in that group, like Chris Lake's in there, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't want to piss in your pocket or anything, but Yeah, look, I set the group up. It's like 5 years or 6 years ago now. I can't remember. And it was just like, I used to be anti social media. I fucking hated it, right? And now you can't keep me off it.
I was going to say, I think you posted 30 memes in a row the other day.
It's the worst thing. It's like I'm so anti-social, but I'm not really a social person in that sense. And I don't know, a lot of you have probably had phone calls from me. I'm pretty abrupt and gruff and abusive on the phone in the sense, but that's just the way I am. But it just, I set it up. It was like, right, okay, well, let's do this social media thing. And I pulled all my mates in, everyone that I know. There's like, it's not just that, it's full of like some of the biggest drum and bass producers in the world. It's got some of the biggest house guys in there, some of the biggest mix engineers. You've got like, Kendrick Lamar's mix engineer in there, and all these pop guys as well. You've got guys with multiple #1 records, producers, #1 pop acts and stuff. And it was just set up it was originally as a place for, professionals to hang out and talk geek, and then we started letting in the plebs. No, we started letting in like beginners and stuff, and then the blog and everything else. So it's about no nonsense shit. Like we don't let any, there's no, like it's close to like, it's over 10,000 members, but I don't do any self promo for my business in there. You know what I mean? It's like I've built this up and everyone's like, oh, why don't you use it for that? But it's not what it was about. There's no one promotes themselves. No one tries to sell their business in there. It's literally, if you need some help, you can post in there and people will give you honest feedback, whether it's equipment, acoustic stuff. We've got acoustic engineers in there that help out. And we'll point you in the right direction. Discounts.
Speaking of self-promotion and your business, you're doing one-on-one sessions. So how does that exactly work? You're opening people's projects and then adding your
what I'm doing is it's people have asked me for fucking ages to do it, and I never really had the time. But this whole COVID thing has just changed, I think, for everybody. And I know everybody, it's the word, I hate using it. It's just the new norm. Do you know what I mean? It's just, everything's changed. There's like, people that attended sessions, the people don't come in anymore. And for me, I just basically, I'm not in the studio as much because it's just, okay, well, no one's coming in today. I'm not, instead of like 4 hours, 5 hours on a job, it's taking me an hour because someone's not sitting there and not fucking chatting shit for like 2 of those hours. You know what I mean? So I just had some more time. And so I decided just to offer up no nonsense mentoring, it's Klaus style. basically techniques are not easy. Techniques are easy to learn, right? They're everywhere. It doesn't matter what style of music you write, whether it's fucking, you know, garage, pop, rock, punk or dance music. The techniques for all style of music are all the same. They're not hard to learn. They're all over the internet, and there's no secrets. It's like it's the problem people have is identifying what their issues are. Playing stuff to your mates. That's fucking sick, mate. That's not going to help you. I basically just rip you apart in a good way.
Yeah.
Which is like I've done. You've been on the end of my stuff. I don't pull any punches because there's no point pulling punches because that's how I was taught. Because there's no point sitting there going, you know, it's just rip them apart in a good way. Positive, you know, positive abuse is maybe, that's going to be my same point. But, you know, it's ripping them apart, pointing out where the errors are, and then you can identify what needs to be fixed. I think people struggle with that. It's like, well, how am I going to improve, you know? And that's it. So the people send me some music. One of the things I do is everyone that I've done so far, I've had like 4 or 5 tracks and we go through each track and I point out things and then I point out techniques that you can use to improve, and everyone's walked away and gone, right, you know, and then they put those in place. Other things I do is, okay, well, let's semi-mix your track now. Let's give me some stems and I'll show you what I would do with this track. And then we go for it for an hour and you can see the techniques that I would use to do it all. So that's what it is. And we generally, it's, you know, 1, 2, maybe 3 sessions. First one, book another one a month later, and then maybe a follow-up after that. It's not intended to be like long-term thing. It's supposed to be, you know, you book when you feel like you want to sit down, or if you've got something specific you want to learn, you can ask. But it's been all very positive so far. It's actually it's fucking flat out people emailing me, but I just I can't. I don't have the hours to give everybody.
Maybe I think one of the best bits of advice you gave us was how important it is just to pick the right sounds, and that, you know.
Oh, I always thought it was "don't be a cunt" was the best piece of advice I gave you. Seriously, I think it's the best advice anyone can give you in this industry is "don't be a cunt." Yeah, it's the first thing, and then you know. Anyway.
Yeah, 100%. No, I totally agree with you on that. We do have a couple of questions here. So is there anything else apart from CanOpener that you would recommend for people just using headphones?
Sonarworks. Housemate's on the phone, so I'll just ask in chat. Is there any other CanOpener? Yeah, Sonarworks, CanOpener is the two. And then if you tell me what headphones you've got, I can probably give you a setting for CanOpener, because the settings will be different for all of them. My friend Tom Bott, who is another breakbeat old school legend, he is also super headphone geek. So he's got settings for most of these. Audio Technica M50s. Yeah, well, let me have a look. That's Nicholas. I'll have a look, and Sonarworks. CanOpener. I'm not. What I would do with CanOpener is for Audio Technica is I'd download it and try them. I'm not sure you're going to get that much of a benefit of CanOpener on the Audio Technica M50s. Might be. I think the stereo imaging on them and stuff is probably not going to be that great, but give it a go.
What's your thoughts on Isotope Neutron?
No, it's been out a while. I like all the Isotope stuff. I'll tell you what that Neutron is. I'll tell you what I like is all that kind of auto shit that Isotope and stuff do. It's like, you know, I hear it every day on reference masters that people send me, and all it does is it's registering and looking for peaks and troughs, you know. So it will cut where there's a peak where it thinks it's too loud, and it will fill where there's a trough, but it doesn't listen to it, because sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes it's been mixed on purpose, you know what I mean? There's no mid-range. If a track is all kick and bass and hi-hat and very little in the mid-range, those plugins are going to boost all that mid-range and it's going to sound shit. And that's the problem with Neutron and all that sort of stuff. But the one feature that I do like is the masking feature, which if you put one instance of Neutron on your kick and one instance on your bass, there's a feature called masking, and you can you can join the both plugins so that they analyze each other, so that you see the signal of the kick and it's coming into the EQ of the bass, and you can see where they're clashing. And you pull down the sensitivity node, and it shows you the masking features. So masking is where you're going to get frequency cancellation. Well, no, it's not even cancellation, but stuff where the frequencies are crossing and you'll get mud and everything else. A few little cuts in the areas where the masking is showing you will give you more clarity and hopefully more space and things like that. I love that feature, but the actual EQ, I don't think it sounds great. So what you end up doing is using the masking feature and then swapping the EQ out for like DMG or even Fab Filter and swapping it out. But you guys wouldn't, not saying you wouldn't hear it, but most of you probably wouldn't hear it. It's just that I hear these kind of little artifacts, and it's, you know, just annoys the shit out of me. I'm probably imagining it, but it's stuff that it's stuff that I hear in the EQ of Neutron that I don't like, but then I don't hear it in the isotope, you know, in the ozone EQ, and it's basically based off the same one. So I probably am just imagining it, but still. But the masking feature.
Mitch, you got a question?
The compressor's really nice on it as well. It's a great channel strip. There's nothing wrong with it. It sounds really good. And the updates have been really fucking good recently. And there's Mitch got a question, but he hasn't typed it.
Hey, mate, how's it going?
Question. Oh, we're getting verbals.
Hey, mate. First up, I want to say thanks for your Facebook group, man. It's a great help. I actually specifically had a problem over the weekend. There's some really helpful people in there that ended up helping me get the problem sorted. So thank you very much for that group. Got a couple of questions. One, I just heard you say before to do with headphones and amps. I've got the LCD2s here. What type of sound card do you need to power those? I've got the complete audio instruments, complete control. Is that enough for these?
I'd have to check. I'm not sure. You've got to see how much the ohms that it takes to drive them. But generally, what you could do is you wouldn't even need an interface. What you could do is that you could just have a separate headphone amp. There's a little design called an O1, and in Australia, the company, I think it's JD Audio makes them. So it's really weird. So quite a few years ago, all these random designs for like headphone amps and all this kind of stuff started appearing on these hi-fi DIY sites. And it turns out the designs were incredible, and no one knows who's made them or anything else. Supposedly it was, you know, from a deceased estate, and the family were posting them up. Anyway, so they're all open source, but a few companies have been making them. And this O1 headphone amp is one of them. And what you could do is you could buy that. It's like a couple of $100, but they sound great. And you could feed, you know, an output from your native instruments into the headphone amp and then drive your headphones from that. But you know, I'd have to look to see.
No, that's right. I thought I'd ask there.
I imagine the output, the headphone output, is probably not that amazing because they're spending the money on the conversion at the other end. But I could be wrong.
And the other thing was, so I've always appreciated your opinion on different products. I've currently got the Adams A7X monitors. If I was to look at something in the next bracket, because I'm starting to appreciate the finer details in sound and that, what would be your recommendation for the next tier of monitor?
It's such a big area. I love it. Okay, so if it's the first thing you've got to decide is your budget, but we won't talk about that. We'll just say, okay.
So above, so the Adams were like $2,000 for the set. So then above that bracket,
you're going to be looking at, so let's say for the next jump up, you're going to be looking at 3.5 to say 7, right? That's really realistically the kind of area, right? So in that area, you've got, if you like ribbon tweeters, you've got, Adams, the next one up, which is their complete redesign, which is the S series. So you've got the S2V, the S3V. You can get really good deals on the 3Vs. Obviously, the 3Vs are a freeway, and they've got DSP as well. So you've got a little bit of room correction in them. And I believe they were doing something with Sonarworks that you could put Sonarworks inside it to correct, but don't hold me to that. But I believe that's again. The S2Vs are their smaller version of that, but they punch well above their weight. And if you like that sound, Head, H-E-D-D, it's basically from the same family lineage as Adam. So Adams, there's been kind of lots of splits in the company over the years. Head is the original designer from Adam with his own company, and Klaus, he's named Klaus as well. You got Klaus is the original, is the dad, and Freddie is the son, and they're both acousticians, and they've got this, you know, Head speakers. They're pretty fucking phenomenal. And for what you do, I like them because from a producer's perspective, I like the grunt of the low end. I like it, feeling it on your chest cavity shaking. You know what I mean? Like I like that ribbon tweeter.
So that's the head.
Yeah,
head one you were saying.
Yeah, that's Head and Adam. I just like that kind of sound. If you wanted more detail,
I haven't been doing that at A7Xs, so I would enjoy getting something same company, just the next level up.
Yeah, Adam
and
and Head. A Head would be a very similar sound because it's ribbon tweeter. If you wanted a little bit more kind of definition and detail, a little bit of a posher sound, so to speak, Amphium is another really good one. You could get the bigger ones, you might need to pair them with a sub. They're passive, so you'd need an amp. Then PMC is another good one, and they've got some in that price range. PMC is a British speaker manufacturer. I mean, I use PMC big mains mastering for a long, long time. They were kind of pretty much a very staple in British studios. Yeah, go on.
And then I'll finish off my last question with it's a bit of a personal one for you. You've obviously worked in lots of studio environments before. What's your favorite type of studio to work in? Do you like a small one? Do you like a larger professional one, or what do you enjoy working in?
I like going into. I've always been lucky to work in pretty good rooms. You know, the room I built out here when I moved to out to the suburbs and stuff was really nice. I'm now back in the city in another room. The room I had before that was always really nice. Yeah, look, I don't. It doesn't really bother me, to be honest, as long as I'm used to the room. But I do like nicely built rooms, and I like going into the studio, and I like I like going into the places that people, there's other engineers working and stuff. So I prefer that kind of, proper built rooms. All the studios worked in a proper, but I'm saying I like that environment with multiple studios in the same, not just one room, you know what I mean? Like the studio I was working in London had 100 studios. So It's like, it's all kind of, yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much for your time, mate. Cheers.
That's good.
We got, Casper's got a question.
I was kind of, mixing, kind of just getting into the mixing and the producing thing. I've been wondering like how you what kind of loudness you aim for it, and what kind of, what your approach today is. If you can share any tricks or knowledge.
But what are you trying to achieve? Are you talking about final level, for a final master level, or are you just talking about general mix level? It's a real subjective kind of thing. Loudness, like for me, loudness potential starts with the mix. So everyone always says, I need to get a louder master. It's like, well, sort your fucking mix out. It really is. It's not about the mastering. There's lots of tricks you can do to make something louder, and I've got equipment that gives me the headroom to go up, but it's the mix that dictates it. So it's not about the level, it's about just the way you construct your mix. It's like, make sure even though DAWs are basically a 32-bit floating and there's unlimited headroom now, having good gain structure inside your DAW so that you're not clipping your channels, you're not driving plugins too hard, because a lot of these plugins are trying to emulate hardware. So if you're driving them too hot, you're getting distortion from them as well. So all those emulations like wave stuff, you need to have proper gain structure running into them because they're trying to copy. So you want to make sure you've got good gain structure in the mix, not driving the channels, nothing's clipping, and then that enables you to have that headroom. And for a pre-master, as long as you are not clipping the red in the master channel, it doesn't matter. The minus 6 dB thing is a myth. Minus 6 dB goes back to the days of DAT recorder, digital audio tape. So you couldn't drive into the tape to make it because it would distort, so it had to be pulled back. So when you used to go to mastering, you used to have to take a DAT tape, and you used to have to hit the converters of those at -6 because otherwise it would distort. It doesn't matter now. So you can drive your as long as that master channel, I'll just have it up there, man. Just fucking slam it up.
Yeah.
But just don't clip in the red. And then if you want overall loudness for your final master, even if it's if you're trying to master yourself or you're mastering someone else's, or you just, it's like you're doing the project.
Get a bit of an idea.
Yeah, you're probably doing it all yourself. It's like let the music dictate, where it wants to sit. So the streaming stuff, you've got -14 LUFS for Tidal, -13 for Spotify, -11 LUF for YouTube, and then it all goes out the window they use loudness normalization. So quiet tracks, yeah, some of them turn the quiet tracks up, others just turn the loud tracks down. And then that all goes out the window when you use their web app, because none of them use loudness normalization in the web app. So what you get is, if you try to master to those levels that they recommend, if you've got someone using the app without loudness normalization switched on, because it's an optional setting, your track is then going to be quieter than everybody else is on the playlist, because they're not bothering to use a streaming master. So the idea is middle ground when it comes to the streaming stuff. And and for me, I'm still not even convinced of that. I just think if you've got as long as the true peak, when you convert, so when the codec converts the files, you've got no overs, you've got no intersample peaks, and there's no clipping. Do you know, like when you buy like a file from Beatport and you get the MP3 and you put it in your DAW and it's all in the red, and you're like, how the fuck does that even get up there? That's intersample peaking. That's the conversion that does that. And you can stop that, and the reason how you can stop that is just either using a true peak limiter, but that softens the transients and you can generally hear it, or you can just give enough of a ceiling when you on your final limiter of like a 1 dB or something like that, so that when it converts, those overs aren't going to be there. As long as you've dealt with that side of it, I don't really see a problem with just using your loud club master on the streaming sites.
And do you kind of aim for a certain?
You kind of, for me, value? I just think that for house music, -8, -7 is nice. Some music is just not realistic. Some music is -5 is where it's got to be, because otherwise it just sounds too quiet against everything else. But I think -9 is a good area to be aiming for streaming. It's not. Yeah. It's not going to get turned down, and it will kind of sits with everything else. Yeah, it's a whole fucking minefield, man. It's just
I know.
It just master so it sounds good. Make sure there's no distortion. Make sure there's no clipping. Just make sure the track breathes. Do you know what I mean? Like, I generally don't. I know there's a ballpark area that people want to go to. I think between 7 and 9 is an all right for house music, and I think most of you are like house music producers, and unless you're doing like fucking Dirty Bird sort of style, when you want to go even louder. But then clipping is the secret for that. You're limiting, clipping, limiting, to bring up the volume.
Thanks. Yeah, that's great. That's
awesome. Dimmy, you had a question as well? You still there? You got to take yourself off mute.
Wait, not so far. Maybe somebody else.
There we go.
I'm here.
You there?
This one working? Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Yeah, it's a bit off topic now, but I want to ask about my headphones. They're the DD770 Pro, the 80 ohms.
Yeah.
The Bayer Dynamics, and they're a bit.
They're shit.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Yeah. They're just yeah.
Good to get them, but I'm not happy with them.
No, they're not. They're not a great headphone. For a start, you want open back for production. So because you want the drivers to move, so you want air, and you've got to decide how much you want to spend. Headphones are literally, it's just like fucking speakers. You can spend so much. I've spent so much fucking money on headphones. It's ridiculous, right? And they all sound different. They all do. The only thing I can recommend to you is, for me, Audeze are the number one. Actually, I've got two now, so I'm going to have to be fair. So I like the new Head, which HEDD headphone, which is the German company. I'm using that a lot, and I'm still using my Audeze. They're the two that I like. The Audeze or Audezes. The good thing about those is the low mids, which is always really important for dance music. Is like, people, just for the life of me, I don't know why, they've just got this obsession with cutting away low mid, MIDI information. It's like, for some reason they've got this thing of like, oh, well, you cut the mud away. It's like, yeah, but you don't cut it away on everything. Do you know what I mean? It's like body, you want whack 200, 300 hertz on a snare, gives it weight. Same with simps, fills out that area so you don't get this big scoop out the middle. Then you can pick selected bits to get rid of the mud and tidy it up. But low mids, and Audeze is the headphone that gives you that low mid. That's the secret of them, and that's why they're so good for mixing and particularly for dance music, because you hear all that low mid information. And for me, I think you'll find that that's the secret to all the really good mix engineers and the mastering guys is the low mid. And when I say low mid is like, say 160 to 800 1K, and a lot of the kind of 200 area gets cut out and stuff like that, but it doesn't need to be on everything. It's like you've got to be strategic on where you remove stuff, but that area gives you weight and fullness and body. You've got to remember is that's like club systems, it's like your bass starts getting rolled off at Lamia. Some systems are like 50 hertz and it's like a smooth roll off. Some are higher, so you've got the bass there but it's not as big. So when you concentrate on that, so you get that low mid and it fills in the space above it, and it just gives the fucking, it gives you that weight to a track. So Audeze are the ones, they have that. And the focals have it a little bit, but they're brighter as well.
Awesome.
There's a new one called CanOpener as well, which is the original Audeze designer. He left them a few years ago, so he's a mastering engineer, and he designed these. And when they sold the company, went stock exchange and stuff, he set a new one up, and they've got maybe an updated version of the Audezes, really. But it's budget for headphones.
Yeah, of course.
You can. Or LCD one is the first one. Is the sort of intro headphone that I kind of recommend for people, and I think they're like,
which is what Casper's got, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, what are they, 600 Australian here or something
I think
like that?
800
or 800. You can probably get a better deal on them as well if you shop around. Just ask old Champion bought a pair from my mate recently, and he got a good price on them, so you should see what he paid. I think you can shop around generally and get some better deals, but LCD one is where I'd be looking. And then you can add, they've got their own VST plugin called Reveal, which you can add on the output, and then you can set to flatten the curve, and that makes them sound better as well. So yeah, that's where 100% I'd be looking. But it's budget again, that's where it all comes down to, how much you want to spend. But if you're sitting in the room that you're working in, if that's your production room, it's like, and you're serious about it. That's what I always say to people when people are like, it's a lot of money, or it's this, it's like, I'd rather, you're better off going off and spending $800 on a pair of Audeze headphones than you are going to buy a pair of fucking Yamaha, HS speakers or whatever they are, the HS 8s. Way better off buying a headphone and Subpac combination for the bedroom producer than doing that. So it's money well spent. And as long as you look after them, they're just like normal speakers. You drive them too hard, the drivers will blow. Don't roll over the cable with the chair.
I've done that. I had to buy another cable.
Yeah.
I've got a good one now.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I could ask one real quick. Mid-side stereo image and not being out of phase.
So
yeah,
look, I mean, basically, like half your soft. The problem is now is most of these soft synths are coming out with the stuff out of phase. That's the biggest problem. So here's the thing, right? There's so much misinformation online about it all. It's not, in general, when we're to say your bass needs to be mono, your kick needs to be mono, it's all this kind of stuff. It goes back to there's two things it goes back to. It goes back to vinyl cutting days. That it's not impossible to cut stereo bass, but I can't remember the exact way round. But basically, stereo low end information makes wider moves of the lathe. I can't remember if it's vertical or lateral or whatever, which way it goes. But the lathe goes like this. The record spins round. The lathe has got the diamond head and it cuts, and the lathe moves like this. Yeah, moves across. And because of the stereo bass, it makes the movement wider. And what that gets is it gives you fucked up grooves on the cut, so you get jumps. Yeah, so that's why people don't like those phase stereo basses, and they narrow them all. And the other thing is on clubs, you don't have stereo for 100% stereo club systems. What you generally have is you might have the mono stack at the front, with the low end stereo satellites around the dance floor, but you can't have stereo because everyone needs to be directly between the speakers. So it'll be a combination of, but the low end in general is mono. So what you get is that if you're not checking your mixes in mono and you're using stereo basses, and I do see it all the time, that when the track gets played in a club, that low end folds over and it just doesn't sound the same. Sounds disappear, etc. So the best way to deal with it all is just, you've got to be strategic. You've got to turn around and go, okay, my very low sub, 100 hertz down or whatever, that's mono. That's narrow that because it centers it and makes it tighter. So, you know, splitting it up into 2 buses and having your top bass and your low bass, you know, even if it's the same sound, you can mono off one of them and then have a sort of second bus with it, you know, and having the higher part of it on a separate bus and having the width. It's literally, you just got to play around. And what you can do is you can just gently narrow them until you bring the phase in, or you can try some phase plugins, you know, things like a Voxengo do a little plugin called PHA-978 or something like that, and you can just, you know, shift the phase on stuff and move them in. But generally, I would, you know, narrow them. You can use a mid-side EQ, narrow, cut off the side information to narrow the information in. You can obviously just, you know, micro shifts of the parts over to move the shift of the elements. Do you know what I mean? So it's in phase with something else. The bass might be out of phase with the kick, so you could leave the kick as it is, but slowly, you know, slightly shift the bass whole thing over, tiny little segments, you know, little fractions of a beat, you know, moving them over and to tighten up the phase relationship between the two. But generally, it's like, you know, just don't use fucking shitty stereo sounds. That's the biggest thing. Comes out that it's the biggest thing. You think it sounds great when you're at home, and then when you get outside, it's like, where the fuck is that synth gone? Because it's literally vanished. Because when it's folded over into mono, the phase is completely out of phase, so it's dropped to the back of the mix. So you just got to be strategic. You've got to listen to it. You've got to constantly checking your mix in mono.
Yeah,
it's all there.
I was I kind of use Brainwork stuff to make the bass a bit more mono, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I meant more when you're thinking about placing instruments in the mix, because obviously you've had a few goes on the mix for me, but when I'm thinking about giving you a group of stems like drums, for example, or synth, I want to make sure that I've maybe positioned them in the right spot before, you know, that kind of thing.
Only you can tell if they're in the right position, because it's the creative mind. It's all open up to your interpretation. It's where you want to place. It's where you want to place stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, if you want to, I heard a track today, which was a Alex Perez track, where it was literally a topic about phase and stereo basses and all that kind of stuff, myth. And the kick was just in the left-hand side, just playing on the left-hand side. But the whole track sounded fucking amazing. And it was done on purpose. It wasn't it was an electronic track, or it wasn't a club track or anything else. But the point is if it sounds good, it's fine. But what you just constantly have to watch out for is to flick into mono and just make sure that you just don't lose too much information when it folds across. And normally you don't, you know, it's the information from like 300 down that you should worry about. And you lose a lot of weight from simps and stuff like that. But panning, try not to go too wide. It's like, it's lost anyway. So you're going to lose it in the club. It's just that people problem now is because more people listen to your music streaming than they ever will in a club, and that's even before COVID. So people try to mix the, you know, earbuds and, you know, headphones and all that as well, and you want that kind of wide sound. But
but if I've got a stereo, say 2 stereo synths, and I shift them kind of like left and right, would I be better off making them a bit more mono and then having them kind of sit?
You could have 2 tracks, and pan one, pan left, and make them mono and try it. The only way to do it is to try. Is you could literally have the left-hand channel and the right-hand channel and do it like that. You wouldn't even have to make them mono. You could just pan one and pan left, you know, copy the track over, pan one left, pan one right, and do it like that and control the pan. You know, it's experimenting. It's like, until you hear what it does to the sound, you know what I mean? You can try all of those things, but every sound will sound different, you know, or you could just, a lot of those stereo sounds that come out of all these soft synths are all out of phase anyway. That's the biggest problem. And they've got all sorts of plugins that are, you know, not plugins, but all sorts of effects sitting on the output of the synth. And they're all doing some weird stuff. And there's always left-right imbalance as well. Do you notice that? How like the right-hand channel is louder than the right and all that kind of shit. And that just becomes more noticeable as you bring the volume up. It's like, well, okay, well then why don't you just mono that channel off, make 2 of them, pan one left, pan right, done. And you've got like a stereo effect. It's just the same as you do with vocals, isn't it? The vocals are recorded mono, but you multi-track them, so you've got the left and the right, and you pan. You can do that with synths as well. And the other trick is that you could keep the stereo one and then make a mono version and then blend the mono version in underneath, so that you've got the punch down the middle, but you still got the width.
No, that's cool.
Kind of like parallel processing, you know, but doing it just with a straight up track. So you could have, so you've got your stereo synths and they're nice and wide, but there's, you know, down the middle, it doesn't sound quite right when you go to mono. You just, you know, bounce a stereo version of it, convert it to mono, and blend it in so that it's down the middle of it, or when it gives body and weight. So when it flicks over, you've got more presence in the mid range. Just another little technique you can use as well.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cool. We got another question from Mark. Did you want to unmute yourself, or I can read it out? Recording a lot of live instruments, headphone-wise, just what you've recommended previously is fine for that sort of thing?
Oh, no, recording, if you're going to record stuff, you want to have closed back. It's the same as vocals. So closed backs, you've got a couple of good ones are, give me a second, because I literally just sent a message to someone the other day. Let me have a look with a few brands, because there we go. Okay, yes. So closed back ones. You can look at the Mackie MC350s that are closed back. They're supposed to be really nice. Use them with Sonarworks. And then if you wanted to spend more money, there's a thing called the closed backs are Dan Clark Aeon 2. So DANCLARK, Dan Clark, and the model number is Aeon, AEON 2. They're a closed back, and that's the kind of, you know, closed back equivalent of the Audeze. That's, you know, they're about $1,500. That's the kind of, you know, they sound really, really good. But you know, the cheaper Mackies. But for recording, you always want closed back so you don't get any bleed.
Awesome.
Otherwise you're going to get your bleed from the microphone of your performing.
Awesome. Has anyone else got any more questions?
Yeah, there's another one there. I sample quite a bit of spoken word samples. Is there anything you recommend I do them to make life easier for when I send the stems over, other than just cutting out harsh sounds? Just basically cutting out the noise in between stuff, making sure there's no hiss. You can, I stick a gate on them, but it's easier just to go in and chop stuff. Making sure that you kind of correcting any sibilants, so that you hear my lisp, the S's and the T's, making sure you go in and clean all that up. It's better to do it by hand instead of trying to use a de-esser plugin. So I don't know how many of the other DAWs work, but a lot of them have clip gain. So if you've got an audio file, you can go into the vocal, and where there's a sharp S or T or sh or anything else, you can literally cut either side where the sibilant is, and that becomes a new clip, and then you can just turn that one down. You can go through all your audio, same with vocals, whatever, before you do anything else, is turn down those sibilant parts, get down the S's and the T's, do it all manually before you do any automation, before you do anything else. It's the first thing you do. Clean up the hiss, the noise, the clicks, and the, you know, the feet tapping in the background that the mic's picked up. Clean up the audio. The amount of audio I get sent of vocals, and they've got, you can hear the track still playing in the background in the bits where the singing isn't there, where there's no cleaning up that's been done. Clean all that up, and then clean out those sibilants, then start your processing. First thing would always be, you know, a bit of compression, and then manual automation by hand, draw in the bits. You know, you can do it the same way. You can either draw it in manually so that you've got your automation over in your DAW, but the way I like it is the same thing, clip gain. I always just go in and just chop. I don't, you know, do big bits of automation anymore. I'll literally go for listen, and when a loud bit, and if there's a part of the voice of like, it's too loud, chop that bit, turn it down, match it, you know, until it sounds right, instead of drawing it all in, because you always want to change it anyway. And then you end up with automation, you know, data is all over the screen, and when you move stuff, it fucks it up. It's a pain in the ass. So clean up the S's, the T's, clean up the vocal, get rid of hissing, then automation, then your processing. And if you want to do all that before it starts feeding into the rest of your effects in the chain, because once you start adding compression, reverb effects, it's all becoming exaggerated if you've not cleaned up the S's and the T's. If you're trying to do it at the end, the reverb and everything else you put on there and the compression has made those S's and T's even worse. So do it all at the beginning.
Awesome. I'm not sure if this one would be a good question for you, but if it's a recording instruments.
Going back to splitting the low frequencies, like the bass bus into low and the high track, what plugins are best for separating sound? You could just literally just copy the two tracks. You'd have one track and then two tracks. So you would, if it's a bass line and it's got high part, it's a bass that's got a high tone to it and a low part, you could just copy that track down twice and just put a low pass filter on to get rid of the top parts. You've just got the low end, and then on the top part of the bass, a high pass filter. So you guys all know what the filters I'm talking about. Was a low cut is actually what they call a high pass filter. So the low cut, it's actually counterintuitive to what you think it is. High pass filter means high pass means all the high information is passing through and you're getting rid of the low information, low cut, high pass. High pass filter is the opposite, which would be a high cut, but a high pass filter means that all the high information is being cut out, you know? The low pass filter, I mean.
Yeah.
Low pass filter is the information in. High pass, lows coming through, high pass that. Anyway, so you could cut them out and then layer it up, so you split your basses up. And then most of you are probably using like multiple synths anyway with low bass and high bass. So you can just have your separate buses. And then you can leave the high basses with the stereo information. Then you can make those low basses, make them more mono, make them more down the center as well. Because it gives you notice it straight away. It might not sound as exciting, but it's down the middle, it's tight and it's punchy because there's no phase left and right with the low end bass, you know, like you get on the stereo. You don't get that weird inconsistency.
Can you hear me? Sorry, that was my question.
Yeah.
I've always just been worried when doing that there's either going to be a little valley in between from the two high pass, low pass, or there's going to be an overlap where you're getting...
Do you hear a valley and do you hear an overlap? If you don't hear it, it's not there. You'll know if it's there because you'll hear it.
Yeah.
You do brick wall EQ, right? That could be like on Ableton and Fat Filter and stuff.
What's the brick wall EQ?
Like, you know, if you're high passing or low pass.
Oh yeah, that's a steep filter. Yeah.
Steep.
But if when you're talking about filters and stuff, is that if you go too steep on things like sub bass, it changes the tone and you get things like pre-ring as well. So, you know, what you can do is you can use a linear phase and that will stop the tonal shift. And I bet many, have loads of you ever gone on to your cut a sub, and when you put the high pass in, the whole bass, the sub just changes sound. Do you know what I mean? The whole of it just completely changes. And you take the high pass out and it's back to the sub that you want, and you bring it back in and it sounds higher in pitch and all weird, because that's what the filters do. And the steeper you go, the more dramatic it is. But if you do that in linear phase mode, you can kind of keep the original sound, and you can do those steep one. The steep is good for making it tight, but you got to listen. You got to listen for like pre-ring if you're using linear phase, and for like, you know, and are you cutting away too much as well? You know, that's the big thing. People getting carried away. But it is, you know, steep filters can be nice, make them really tight. I used to be a big fan of them, but I've stopped using them. What? It sounds like someone's fucking blowing into the microphone. What is? Can you not hear that?
It's the raunchy part. We've got some blowing going on.
I was going to say, it's like we
well,
turn into a porn show now.
That's the next Zoom. I've actually got the next porn Zoom in about 2 minutes. Well, I reckon let's wrap it up there. Otherwise, we'll probably...
No, there's more questions.
All right, what else have we got?
We've got...
Hey, Klaus, I've got one question for you. Thanks for that. I think that might have been me with the Bison. Sorry, I've just got some shitty headphones on. I just have a quick question regarding monoing sounds between or under 200 hertz. I tend to sort of do that with my synth, that sort of stuff. Is that something you should be doing?
You cut them out.
So chuck a utility, Ableton utility on just a lot of synths and all that sort of stuff, and just mono under 200.
Yeah, you got to listen to it. Some of those synths might not. Some of them synths might not need it. Some will. What I would say is don't get carried away and go fucking willy-nilly and cutting everything away. Some of that width you might want. For me, it's like 100 down is important, but some of that synth, if you cut too much of it away, it just doesn't sound the same. You know, you lose that body and you lose that image. So I wouldn't go, okay, there's a fucking bus with everything on and get rid of it all. I would be like, you know, pick one or two sounds and say, does it sound better if I get rid of it there? Does it sound better if I leave that one there? And pick and choose, but don't be brutal. It's the same with high passing, you know what I mean? See it all the time with people just getting carried away and fucking cutting everything away. Oh, let's cut fucking 400 away and the synth's got nothing left, and all it is like shh, fucking top end taking your fucking ears out. Just you know.
So right, so below 100 hertz is you cut and you keep it in mono. But
listen, here's the problem, right? You're trying to have a specific and get a rule and say, this is what you need to do. And that's the problem with production now, is that online, all you see is, this is what you do. You know, this is the rule. You cut everything down, you make it mono. It's not. It's never been a fucking rule. It's never been the way it's done. It's you do what the music needs. So if you think that it sounds better with everything monoed from 200 down, then it sounds better. But how about going, okay, let's just do, the bus has got 6 synths running to it. How about we just put 3 in there, mono those off from 200 and leave the other ones wider? And this cunt in the middle is going on an adventure. Look at it. I don't even know where Nicholas is going. I've literally seen, like, I've seen hallways and outdoors.
He's taking us to the bathroom.
I'm like, what's going on? Like, it's like, Nicholas is going on walkabout. He's
I had to go pick up my dog from out.
Is that a euphemism for something?
You'll see her in a sec.
Okay. But yeah, look, you know, just if you think it sounds better, but also remember that there are also areas that make stuff sound thicker. They make it sound bigger. It's warmer. Warmth comes from that area in the track. Those old cliches of sounds, you know, warmth makes it sound fuller and stuff. Fully sick. Is there always some crossover if you use a high pass filter EQ? Isn't there always some crossover if you use a high pass filter and an EQ? Oh, yeah. Okay, we have kind of tried it. Yeah, look, there is always some kind of crossover. Yeah, I'm looking for a good studio mix for instruments. What would mic? Do you mean studio mic? Yeah. Studio mic. Yeah, look, you know, you can't go fucking. You know what the Sennheisers. You know what are they called? I'll have to search it. I'm not really a mic person. It doesn't have knobs on it. I'm not really interested. I like
knobs. That's all we've taken away from today.
True. I wish I hadn't told that story right at the beginning. I thought to myself, oh, that's a fucking brilliant story. And I realized it went on 1, way too long. 2, I was trying to be careful to not sound homophobic because I'm not, but it was like, oh, you know, the current climate and stuff, I'm going to get myself in trouble here if I'm not careful. It's like, you know, and 2, I'm confessing that I went to get a private dance in the strip club. It's like now people think I'm as fucking.
I love how she walked you out the back door.
The best thing is that I walked in and like I had the money in my hand, and then you know you give him for the private dance. She goes through that door, and he went through, and it was the fire exit out. So there's the good Senheiser. Who literally someone sounds like.
Oh. Someone's got to go on mute.
Yeah. So there we go.
Yeah.
What is it? I'm trying to think. Everyone always tells me that the Sennheisers, what I've seen, is always a good one. With microphones, yeah. Look, I'm just looking now.
It could even be different for.
Yeah,
Rode's all right.
Yeah.
Little thing, but
I got the Rode NT.
There we go. What are we looking at? No, the NT. Is it the Sennheiser I'm looking for? Anyway, look, I'll come back to that one. Because I had done several posts about it before, but there's a famous, is it Sennheiser and something, Mike?
You've been doing a bit Casper, haven't you? Have you got any input for that microphone, maybe?
Well, it depends what you want to do, really. Do you just want to have like a general like?
Oh, here we go. I've got here we go. There's an article that I didn't write. But he's a good friend of mine called Jack Rushton, who is like Judas Priest's engineer, and he's talking about microphones. I got him to do it. There we go. So the SM7, so it's not even Sennheiser, and I should have known that. It's the, what is that? Shure. Yeah. SM7 is always a pretty good one. You can't go wrong with. The Sontronics Aria is another one that you could go into. Look, you could. It's basically, he said, if I could buy 2 mics, it would be the Shure SM7 and then the Sontronics Aria, and then you can record anything you ever need, basically. The Bayer M69 and which is BEYER M69 is another good sort of vocal mic and stuff. So yeah, there you go. I can share the link to this later on. Yeah, you also mics. You know, you got to decide. You know, is your preamp good enough as well? You got to, you know, are you getting the most out of your signal going in? Recording stuff, whether it's, you know, even from the mastering chain, it's always about that immaculate path. So you know, mastering engineers will spend their time about, you know, floor noise, the amount of noise going from one bit to the next bit into that. It's to, you know, to make sure that's as minimal. And it's the same recording. So you go into a good studio, when you hear the vocals, there won't be any fucking hiss coming from microphones or hearing old mate rolling up fucking spliffs at the other side or feet tapping. Do you know what I mean? It's like immaculate. There's nothing. You know, and that's the other thing you've got to aim for, is just making sure that you get, you know, there's not excess noise coming from the preamp and the microphone. If you're recording at home, it's like, try not to, like, you know, if it's where the clothes you're wearing, do you know what I mean? Make sure it's not fucking rubbing, so that when you're playing the guitar, or even if you're singing, you're not got some big hoodie on or puffer jacket, do you know what I mean? And you're getting the noise from the clothes rubbing. Things like maybe setting it up so if you've got like you could put like, I don't know, if you've got a closet and you've got some clothes, you could record in, have the door open and have the microphone that side, so you're dulling the sound a little bit to help with noise. It's just all stuff you can do in bedrooms. And then, yeah, basically NT1 is another one you could look. I don't know. There you go.
Cool. I'm going to have to listen back to this and get all of this stuff in the description, so there's links to everything.
I'm looking for a good studio mic. Dinner time, homies. Sorry. No, that's not a question, is it? What are you having for dinner? What are you having for dinner? I actually had Lebanese chicken from down the road tonight. That's what I had, if you want to know, with a rocket and cauliflower salad, because I'm trying to lose weight again. Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, you're very welcome, Nicholas. And then Reese,
thank you for your time, man.
I'm off too. You didn't even fucking say bye, and that was at 9:10. You just fucked off. Thanks, everyone. I have to get going. This is what we've come to. We've got cunts for saying bye in chat now, eh? So it's good. Gotta run. Thanks, Klaus. Oh my God. There we go. Sorry, gotta go. There we go. I think that sums up. Have we got any more questions before we?
On that note, yeah. I think we're good, man. That's awesome.